record. Here we go. Welcome, everyone. My name is Carmen Wells-Quigg, and I am the Vice President of the Board for the Michigan Business Innovation Association. So welcome to our virtual member series that we're having as part of the association. We pivoted to some virtual events as a result of the pandemic, and they're actually gaining some interest. This is our second virtual event that we've done as part of the association. For those of you who don't know, they are open to the wide ecosystem. You don't have to be a member to join our virtual member series. And so we're interested in seeing who's out there in the ecosystem, reconnecting with other folks across Michigan who we might not have seen in a while, or maybe who are just learning about our association. So please feel free to reach out. I'll follow up at the end of today's presentation with a little bit more information about the association, but please feel free to stick around, ask me any questions that you might have if you're not currently a member, and I can help answer any questions about joining our association. In addition to these meetings, we have a couple of really cool events that we do every year in partnership with other leaders in not only Michigan, but also the Great Lakes region, and I'd be happy to share that information with you. As part of our virtual member series, though, we asked that a member host the series, and today it's going to be Sandra Cochran from WMed Innovation Center, and she's brought in a guest speaker. I will let Sandra introduce our guest speaker and our guest topic for today, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sandra. Sandra is the director of the WMU Homer Stryker MD School of Medicine Innovation Center. So that is WMed Innovation Center, and in Kalamazoo. It's a over 68,000 square foot technology incubator in Kalamazoo. Sandra coordinates the entrepreneurial training programs and assists startup and early stage high-tech companies. The services she provides, along with her colleagues, to client companies include business development planning, accessing capital, strategic planning, and general business guidance. And she works with pre-seed funds, angel groups, and venture capital firms to connect companies to capital. Sandra previously served 6 years on the board of directors at the International Business Innovation Association, MBIA, formerly called the National Business Incubation Association. She also serves as a reviewer for the National Science Foundation's SBIR and STTR program. Sandra earned a BA and an MBA from Michigan State University and holds an NBIA certificate in Business Incubator Management. So that being said, I would like to turn it over to Sandra to tell us a little bit more about herself and what we're going to learn from today's virtual session. Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you, Carmen. Wow, you make me sound like I've done so much. You make me sound so old.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm just experienced. I've been around a while, and I see a lot of very familiar faces on the call today. So welcome, everybody. We're going to have a short seminar from a partner of ours. I see Kyle's on the line. I'll introduce him in just a moment. And then we're going to take a little walk around the Innovation Center, a very informal walking tour. I'll show you some of the spaces that we have and answer any questions that you might have about how our program operates. It's a great chance for incubator managers or other ecosystem providers just to learn more about what we do, and I'm happy to share whatever I know. But for our presentation today, we are fortunate to be joined by Kyle Kunnen from Mercantile Bank. Mercantile Bank is a great partner for us here in the Southwest Michigan region. They are very devoted to supporting entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. And when I put kind of the call outs to say who might be out there who would be interested in doing a session for us, my friends at Mercantile Bank immediately chimed in, and Kyle was the lucky dog that got assigned to help us today. And so our topic is going to be cybersecurity, how to protect you and your company in these trying times as we are all doing so much more online. It's really important that we as Innovation Center operators, as well as our clients, learn how to be careful and be safe and protect data online. So Kyle, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me again?
I can hear you. I have made you a co-host, so you should be able to share your slides.
All right, I will go ahead and do that. So you should be seeing my presentation.
Not yet.
Oh, I got to finish hitting the share button.
There we go. All right, and as it comes up, we will ask you to do a little bit better introduction than I did. My introduction was extraordinarily scant. So please tell us a little bit more about you and lead us into this exciting topic of cybersecurity. So important.
No problem. It looks like I got to switch screens. It flipped it to the other screen. Hold on one second.
Okay.
And I definitely will cover that as we get into this. One moment. Come on, where are we? Of course, it's in the way. Hold on a second.
Technology. Oh, I'll tell you.
Yeah, you would think the guy who heads up a lot of that technology would know how to do this, right? Bear with me. I apologize.
That's all right.
Screens are just hiding each other here. All right. And I just had a few pop-ups, and that reminded me that I probably should close some other tools so that we don't get that in the middle of my presentation. All right. So let's, come on, go ahead and share the correct screen this time. And I want to share this one that you all are on, because when I tell it to go into production view,
Yes.
can you see that now with the agenda?
Yes, yes, we do. It's full screen, one slide, looks good.
There we go. All right, good. So apologize for that little delay there. But the talk, as mentioned, is how to protect you and your business and the focus on cybersecurity. There's obviously a huge plethora of information that we could talk about. But when I think of small businesses, there's a couple of them that I'm really, things that I really think about. And so we're going to go through a brief introduction. We're going to do some slides here on what I think the two top threats are. And then we'll go into those threats down below. So obviously I've already kind of tipped you off to what those are, and then maybe wrap up with some questions if we have time. So a little bit about myself here, a brief bit of bio. I've been in banking for more than 25 years. All of it has been within operations, focusing on different things from business continuity to different individual departments, IT, but more specifically within the last several years here is a focus on information security. And so there's a little disclaimer here, the typical legalese, just to say swim at your own risk. These are a lot of them, my opinions are things that I've researched and found. So again, those top two cybersecurity threats to businesses, as I see it, is really on the payment fraud front and ransomware. And I'll get into these in more detail as we move on. So just to give you some idea of, how big is the issues that we're talking about. Well, just on the payment side, here's a public announcement that came from the FBI and the IC3, and they are talking about $2 billion. You can just look at the title there, the headline. $2 billion is what they're expecting, and that they've seen between 2014 and 2019 years. That's a lot of dollars. If we look at another announcement that they had made, they actually went back all the way to October 2013 through 2019 and broadened the scope to actually be more like $26 billion that have happened over those years. So it's obviously a big number and a big problem. And hopefully you're not one of those that are sitting there thinking that this may not happen to me, but maybe as we go into it, we'll explore how that all happens. On the ransomware front, here's a few bullet points that this particular editor had thrown together about ransomware, about how many 4,000 attacks daily, The number of emails that pass through filters that can contain malware is pretty significant, 1 out of 3,000 on average. Ransoms run about $233,000. This is maybe an interesting statistic to keep aware of is, 19 days of downtime. Could be longer than that. Think of, what would happen to your business if you were shut down for 19 days. There's just a continuing of ransomware families, just new variants that keep coming out and twists to it. The hospital industry has seen their share of attacks, obviously, as well as the education sector within 2020. And you may have read a lot about those in the headlines. 2021 is not going to be really any much different as far as this type of, it's not going to go away, let's put it that way. And globally, the recoveries for ransomware are pushing that $20 billion mark. So again, we're talking about a lot of money that either is paid in the form of ransom and or the money that is spent trying to recover or potentially money lost because of your business not being able to operate for 19 days or even longer. So let's dive in specifically to the threats related to payment fraud. And this here is just a little diagram of often what happens as far as payment fraud goes. There's a lot of different scenarios that could fit into this and examples, but for time today, we'll just keep it to this. And essentially a fraud email comes in. It's got typically a lot of times, an invoice is one of the tactics that the adversaries use that has fraudulent payment instructions on it. They've changed these instructions to say pay, this bank, this account number, and it's really not the account number that you typically would pay. They usually use the tactic of that, hey, we changed banks approach. And then the fraudsters then, when the money gets into that account, quickly disperse it out to other accounts so it's moved, and they use these people that are dubbed money mules that are duped into helping them move that money around to obfuscate it. So you might be asking yourself, well, what are the threats related to payment fraud? And, email invoice is an example that I use for that flow is obviously number one away. You might hear them also throw in things like they want you to purchase gift cards because they're trying to act like the CEO or CFO and, hey, I forgot to do this, I'm on the golf course, whatever, can you go get some gift cards? We see that one a lot. There's a lot of different other ones, related to COVID as more recently. New business deals, those are all ways that different things that they try to disguise from as being an internal email and asking for money, essentially trying to get money. Paper invoices received is on here as just a reminder that not everything is electronic in nature, and you could get a bogus invoice through the mail just as much as you could through email. So be thinking of that. And of course, check and ACH fraud and payroll file type frauds still continue as well, because the scenario can work the same way in that as well, where an email is received to the appropriate person within payrolls, claiming to be a person within the organization, oftentimes, an executive thinking that they wouldn't want to be bothered, and hey, I'm changing my bank account, same kind of scenario, right? And if they don't follow up, verify, the CEO's paycheck could end up going to an account in somewhere that they wouldn't really want that to go. And I know of an organization here in Michigan, pretty large organization, where that exact scenario happened, and the procedure was there appropriately, if followed, would have stopped it. But again, because of the nature of who the person was making the request, supposedly, the individual didn't follow procedure as normal. So one of the big causes to to all this payment fraud that's happening out there with businesses is because business emails are being email systems, I should say, are being compromised. And how are the adversaries doing that? And they're doing it with multiple kind of steps. Number one, today with so many people using Office 365, it's not uncommon to get an email, even internally, that then you gotta log in to go get whatever the attachment is. And people just get so numb and used to that sometimes they might be receiving a spear phishing email that's actually going to an Office 365 looking type site that then steals essentially that information when people key it in. Now, that alone shouldn't be enough if when people are using the cloud-based email, if they were using multi-factor authentication. But we've seen too often where that's not been in play. And so once those credentials are phished and are absconded with, the adversary, all they got to do is go to Office 365, log in, and now they're into that person's email. So the significance of that is that if they get the right person to divulge that information, and if the multi-factor authentication is not appropriately set up, now all of a sudden they're the ones who are using email communication against that organization, sending out, say it is the person who sends out the invoices, and they alter an invoice and they send it out. It looks like, and it is truly coming from that person's inbox. And you can see how dangerous that is compared to number 3 on this list, which is the old-fashioned, where everything kind of really started. I call it old-fashioned because it was email spoofing. They try to make the header information that you visually see look like it's coming from a CFO, the owner, the CEO, somebody of high importance. But really, it was coming from maybe a Gmail account or something like that. So if you hit reply, you're actually replying to the adversary, not really to the CEO. So, one way we've gotten around that as organizations, or one way we try to protect against that, is to put that banner in there to alert people that, hey, this is an email coming from outside the organization. It wouldn't have that stamp on it if it truly was an internal communication. And then credential stuffing and spraying is becoming a much bigger thing. And if you're not aware of what that is, essentially with all the attacks that have happened on retail systems and many different systems to where user IDs and passwords have been stolen, those lists now are being used by the criminals in hopes of that somebody was using the same user ID and password for multiple systems, which with the fatigue that we all suffer from with user IDs and passwords, it's very probable and very likely that they will find something that they can use where they will actually get a hit. And so they're bombarding a lot of the systems for, logging in on, online banking systems like ours. We see this on a frequent basis. We continue to put in new tools to help guard against this. But they're using this against any internet-facing system that has maybe information or capability of importance to them. So that's just something to also be aware of that's going on out there. And so how do we stop payment fraud? And I alluded to this a little bit earlier related to like the payroll side of things, to where in any situation where information is changing related to electronic payment information, we really need to make sure that our business procedures are accounting for these situations, knowing that these risks exist. You can't just trust that an email from Kyle is really from Kyle anymore, because if the adversary tricked them, it might truly be coming from Kyle's inbox or from his email, but it's really not Kyle the one sending it, right? So, if we make sure that our procedures looks at the two riskiest things, the two riskiest events when it comes to payment instructions. One is when there's net new. So it's a new deal, any of that kind of stuff. You need to really make sure that that information is accurate and that the adversary is not getting in the middle of that transaction at that point in time. And the same thing is true of when changes are being requested to existing account information. So if you've been paying a vendor all along and you get a new invoice that says, hey, pay this amount, you know, if that's expected, that's no big deal. You can just pay using the instructions you always have. But once you see that alert that they're changing banks, and maybe they are, that should put you on high risk. It should put your personnel who do these types of things at an alert and realize that they need to pick up the phone and call that vendor and have them tell them over the phone really what is, you know, verify for me that the information I received is correct. Because we had an example at the bank where two organizations knew that account numbers were changing, and they had talked about it beforehand. And when they got the email, the person called the other organization and said, hey, I just got the email, did you send it? Yes, I did. What they didn't do is take that added step to verify that the information in the document was correct. And so even in that short window when both parties knew what was going on, that they were planning it, because that added step wasn't taken, the adversary, the criminals, were still able to change send the fraudulent document and had the bogus information in there. So, again, I can't harp on that enough, is just making sure the procedures really can stop this if we pick up the phone and call and verify. Another way is to, some organizations will require a wet signature. Maybe they have the CFO has to sign off on things. Those are other things that you can do to just maybe bolster that. We're not going to send any payments out, put some real good checks and balances in there. Positive pay, obviously, is a banking thing where, if you're writing checks, you can provide the bank a file. And as those checks clear, they'll bounce it against that file that we received from you, saying, here's the check number, here's the dollar amount, here's the date that it was issued and who it was issued to. We can verify and check on any of those items and present any exceptions, to you. And that same thing goes for ACH. If you don't normally have ACH debits hitting an account, you can set up a block for that and be alerted when anybody tries to do that. Dual control is a feature and functionality for ACH and wires in most online banking systems. And if you do that type of activity with your bank, I would strongly encourage you to look at using that functionality. It kind of, again, bolsters that idea of dual control, where one person can enter the information, but somebody else has to verify it, and then they can release it. The first person can't do all of it. And I know with smaller businesses, that's sometimes very difficult to do because so many people, you wear so many hats, it's just, there's not enough people to do it the way that maybe you would like to. And so sometimes trust is given to one person, and maybe that person is trustworthy, but if something happens, like we're talking about, if their credentials are stolen, they can, the adversary would be able to follow through all the way. External email, if your folks have access to external email within your organization, obviously that could incur some additional risk to you. And then again, employee training, I think, would be huge, just making sure everybody's aware. So not only changing the, not only changing the, come on. I apologize. I had this on a timer, and so it's moving along without me. All right. So the employee training, making sure they're aware of the new instructions, make sure they're aware of the risks. That's the security awareness portion. So hopefully on an annual basis, if you're not doing that, there's a lot of companies out there that provide tools to help you do that type of training awareness, as well as a lot of them will offer this phishing training where you can actually create phishing simulations that your staff will receive. We do them at whatever cadence you would like. But if they fell victim to a training phishing email, then it will provide them either, a warning that pops up when they open that link, open that attachment, whatever the activity is that they shouldn't have done, and have a training material right there based on that action. Some of them can even require them to go through additional training, so where they'll get sent information to where they got to log into the training system and they have to do some additional security awareness related to phishing emails and what to look out for and what not to do. And
Kyle?
so those are all very good tactics. Yeah, somebody got a question?
This is here a question in this space. I don't know if it's appropriate or if you're opening the door, Sandra, is blockchain. I hear that as a something. Does it fit on this page, or is it something banks or businesses?
So blockchain is blockchain is something that is growing. Obviously, most people, when they think of blockchain, they think of Bitcoin and things of that nature. The blockchain technology has really not moved into things and spaces where, like online banking and things of that nature. But I have been starting to see it on the back end for protecting data at rest and things of that nature there. So is that answer your question?
Yeah, or explain what it is. Is it like a key? I mean, sorry, I think I can hardly even ask you the question properly.
Oh, I see.
Is it kind of a key?
You're trying to understand what blockchain is that
and
what the question is?
Well, what it is and how it might fit or not fit in this talk.
Well, blockchain, as you may know, requires not any one computer has all the information, right? So it's a series of multiple computers all across the country that have one piece of the chain to make it all together, the actual item of that data that you're trying to protect. And therein lies a lot of the challenge, I think, for most systems is just how that public blockchain works. As I mentioned, there's a number of software companies that are trying and are successfully developing tools that are using more of a private blockchain approach. Again, it follows that same idea that there's multiple computers that would be required in order for the full breaking of the actual, if you want to call it encryption, but the blockchain. But they're being implemented in various different ways, not so much within online banking and a lot of different. It hasn't really migrated there yet, but it's definitely on the radar for a lot of organizations as an innovative way of trying to protect data.
Yeah, it sounds like number 3 in a way, except it's more.
So moving on to the next slide is stopping payment fraud. What if it happens to me? And you may have tried to do all those things. You got the procedures in place, but like the example of the CEO who didn't get his paycheck because procedures weren't followed, it still could happen. So what do? And first off, call the financial institution. The quicker that they know about a payment that went out that shouldn't have gone out to where it was going, allows them the most amount of time to work with fellow financial institutions wherever that money went to try to put a stop on it, make sure that that gets returned. The federal government, believe it or not, the FBI, IC3 have resources out there, and they often are successful as well in helping with that recovery of funds. But I would lean you towards your financial institution as the first stop. They can always help enlist the FBI and other resources along with you if needed. And then I threw this on here, is you might want to call your insurance agent if you do have cyber risk insurance or some sort of business insurance, if you haven't already, be talking to them about the different types of frauds that can happen from a social engineering perspective, and what kind of protections do you have, and what kind of hoops are they going to require you to jump through to actually get disbursement of funds to cover those types of things. So you might want to follow through on that. So that concludes the section on payment fraud and really what we see happening there. And moving on into the ransomware side of things, and everybody's probably heard about ransomware, I hope. But if not, ransomware is a type of malicious software that threatens to publish and or block access to data or your computer system, usually by using encryption against you until you pay the ransom fee that to the attacker, typically in Bitcoin, just because of the non-traceable fashion of that currency is typically why adversaries use that. One thing to note is that this also includes your backups. In fact, before they start encrypting the files that they know are probably going to trip alarms because you're working throughout the day and you all of a sudden can't get in the file, and all of a sudden you figure out that you've got sort of ransomware encrypting all your data. Today's ransomware tries to encrypt your backups before they even get to that point. And so the adversary is generally in your system trying to make sure that happens, because they know they're not going to get paid if you can get to your backups and you feel you can restore without having to pay them. So it's all about payment. They've even more recently taken the steps, and why it says in here that they'll publish it is because they're even stealing data, and not stealing data because they're going to use that data to create, from a bank perspective, if they stole our data, they would be maybe trying to sell it and use it for perpetrating other frauds and ways of getting money. With ransomware, it's quite often they're just stealing your data that may not have that type of issues, but it's your data, and maybe data that you don't want to get out there, like intellectual property or whatever. So it's another form of their way of shaming you into paying. So they encrypt your data, they take your data, and that's all rolled into this thing that's called ransomware. And so how does ransomware typically get on systems these days? Well, number one, with pretty much most anything when you think of maliciousness with cyber security, is email. Email continues to be the number one attack vector, and that's just because the adversaries, the criminals, are going after the human nature that we have of opening emails, clicking links, opening attachments, reacting to what comes into our inbox. And they trip enough people as part of that process that they have no need to change their tactics. But they will look for and continue to look for servers that are internet facing that potentially have vulnerability flaws associated with them. And if they can get in through that door, they'll definitely do that. So, that is another way. Websites, the websites that are often known as watering holes, where a lot of people visit to get information. They have advertisements. I generally despise a lot of the sites that do this, but maybe you've had it where you hit a particular site and then often you get all these different advertisement pop-ups and things like that. Well, a lot of those pop-ups are third-party advertising sites, and they can have malware associated with them just because their security controls aren't there in place. So you go to a reputable website, and unbeknownst to you, you may have also had malware dropped on your machine. And so that's another way that they can do it. Obviously, USB and portable hard drives, if those are being used and moving between, say, home systems and organization systems and getting plugged in, how do you know something's not jumping off? And so it's another way, if there's not appropriate controls in place, to where malware can be propagated and moved. So on the next slide, ransomware prevention or detections. And number one, I listed on there, it's number one of the things that you need to make sure that you're doing, but it's the last thing that you want to actually rely on. Because recovering from backups is just not a wonderful thing to do. And if you talk to your IT folks, they will tell you that as well. I mean, restoring a file here and there that somebody accidentally deleted, that sort of thing, they work great, but you need to restore everything. That sometimes can cost a lot of money and take a lot of time, especially depending on, you know, where those backups might be sitting. But the offline or air-gapped backups means that you do more than one backup. In one of those backups, so when I say you do more than one copy of a backup. So you do your traditional online backup, which makes it very easy for your IT folks to restore things when they need to, the one-offs that are just typical normal course of business. But you should have another backup of the same information, but it's stored in a way that the adversary can't get to it. They can't use the same credentials that your IT folks use to get to the online one. It should be, you know, either you know, built into that system, not an Active Directory, you know, kind of login. So, you know, look into that, make sure that you have backups that are being air-gapped so that the adversary can't lock up your backups. Annually cybersecurity assessment. You know, there's plenty of organizations out there that will help you identify the security gaps that you might have within your organization, how you're set up, things that you could do to improve your security posture, and just really strongly encourage businesses to look into, you know, that approach to making sure they're doing everything that they should be doing. Again, employees already touched on this with the prior, you know, fraud, security awareness, and the phishing email. And that's just because email continues to be that number one a tactic that the bad guys, the criminals, try to use against us. Limit the use of local administrators or privileged access accounts. Back in the day, at home, within organizations, every computer, when it was set up, everybody who had an access to that computer had local admin. That means anything that they clicked on that's going to install something would allow them to do that. That really shouldn't be the case anymore today, but I just keep bringing it up because I see other talks on this, and they bring it up, is just to make sure that your privileged access accounts are limited. So like your system administrators, that you don't have like 50 of them. Most organizations only have a handful. And then the local administrator privilege should not be something that, you know, every user has. In fact, most should not need it at all. Your system administrators only log in with their system admin credentials when they need to do something, and then they have a normal account just like everybody else. So that's key there. Website filtering is just, you know, tools. Cisco's got them. There's a lot of different ones out there. WebSense that allows you to make sure that, you know, known malicious sites your people aren't going to be able to get to when they're using your business internet for internet access to the websites, as well as you might want to think about, you know, what kind of non-business related sites do you want them to be able to get to, and all that. Any restrictions there would obviously continue to improve your security posture. The endpoint protection tools are really key these days. It's more than just traditional antivirus. This is using the evolution of the antivirus, anti-malware systems now are evolved to where they actually look at what is the transaction, what is the action that's happening, not just simply, hey, it matches this particular hash. They look at the events that are going on that are suspicious and alert you to that. And you really need to make sure you've got that advanced endpoint protection tools, not just what I would call the traditional antivirus, which is not very effective. And then segmentation is just dividing your network up, following that least privilege access, making sure that if somebody doesn't need access to all 50 servers, if you have, I know some of you may not deal with this or have that many servers because you're, small business. But just as an example of that, if they don't need to be everywhere in your network, you can segment your network to where they only get privileged access. They only get the access to what they need to do their job, and that's the least privilege approach. So with that, that's ransomware. I know that probably went a little bit long, so I apologize. I'm trying to get through a lot of information on two topics that are very important to me. I'm happy to take questions after the fact if you guys want to send it, and I'm happy to share this presentation, as well as I do have a ransomware self-assessment tool that I would be happy to send along too, that if anybody wanted to go through that, it's kind of like check the box, check yourself kind of thing. You can gladly do that too. So that's all I have for you today.
Thanks.
Give you the control back. You're on mute.
There we go. I couldn't find my button to unmute. I was gonna say, I think that self-assessment tool sounds terrific. If that's something that you could share with me, I could share it out with the wider audience, Kyle. And I think that sounds really nice.
Yeah, I'd have to do that.
You've reminded me with all the stuff that you went through. I guess I'm glad to see that my organization does a lot of these things because they drive me crazy. And I know they don't do it to drive me crazy. They do it to keep us safe. But yeah, all those different layers that organizations can put on, they do really help. I know that they're very important. So.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope it was not only informational, but hopefully will save you a very bad day someday. I mean, that's the educational part, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody would want to send my way. I don't want to take up any more of your time today. Thank you for the time that you've given me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kyle. If anyone does want to contact Kyle directly, I do have his email address. I'd be happy to share it with you. You can just let me know, or maybe if I can pull it and drop it into the chat before this is over, we can do that.
Right.
While I'm thinking about it too, Harry, you're out there. Can you tell me, is SBDC still doing some of their cybersecurity stuff?
Yes, we are. So small business development centers we still have Scott Tabor is our guru, at our lead center at Grand Valley State University, and he'll go out. He'll travel virtually now, I suspect. But yes, so we have someone who can do webinars and occasional client counseling, etc.
Okay, wonderful. So if anyone is
you
interested
can access that. The extra access point would be any SPDC consultant in the network, 100 folks or so.
Yep, that's what I was getting to. Contact your local SPDC office, and if you don't know who that is, well, ask me, ask Harry. There's a lot of us that can help point you in the right direction to do that. Carmen, what are we up to next?
Thanks, Sandra, and thanks again, Kyle. We really appreciate it. And of course, if anybody has questions for Kyle, you can give a quick hand raise if you want. I can call on you live in real time, or if you want to pop something in the chat box as well, we'll be able to read it and throw it back out to Kyle throughout the rest. I think right now, Sandra, we were going to hand it over to you to do a tour if there is still time. Sandra graciously agreed to give us a tour of the WMed Innovation Center, and we'd love to take you up on that offer if there's time.
Yeah, why don't I just walk you down one hall? This is where the majority of our stuff is. So I'll walk you down our hall where we have some of our laboratories. We have our co-working laboratory space and our co-working office space, and talk a little bit about what we do there. Let me mask up and switch over here.
Great. And while you're doing that, again, feel free to throw any questions up for Sandra or Kyle, and we can get those questions answered. And also, while we're at it, if you wouldn't mind giving us a quick chat about your name and your organization, because one of the things we like to do as part of these meetings is do a little bit of networking. So I know we see names here. We don't really have a chance to go around the room, but we'd love to know who you are and what organization you represent, just so we can see it, who's in the room with us today.
All right, am I open? Whoops.
This is kind of also for the group. I think the U of M Flint Office of Economic Development, I don't know if Nick is on the line, they have a cyber office too, or a cyber program.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. I was just actually putting in the chat. We have a cyber range hub, a cybersecurity technology center that we're just getting some kind of industry and community level trainings available, A+ certifications, things like that. And then I also, this week, we have a cybersecurity firm, BitLift, coming in to do a free workshop online around the new DoD requirement, the cybersecurity maturity model certification. And so I just threw that in the chat. If anyone's interested in joining us, or you have clients that you think would benefit, feel free to have them join this Wednesday at noon.
Cool.
Okay, can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Now I got you. Well, I just stepped out into the hallway. So I'll do a quick little walkabout if that's good with everyone. Welcome to the Innovation Center. We are here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We are a 70,000 square foot business incubator. We specialize in life sciences and other high technologies. So I'm going to walk you down our one of our hallways. This is going to be going into the South Corridor. Here are some of the clients that are here in this wing. We have Next Stage Labs, and Vitica and IonTox. And we're going to take a peek what's down this hall. So as we walk in, you can see all of our wings are this size. We have 4 wings like this, 2 first floor, 2 second floor. And they are all laboratories that connect with interior doorways. So a lab will go from one lab to the next with an interior doorway. And as you can see, as we kind of scan by, you see a lot of different laboratory setups. This is a lab that's actually being cleaned out and prepared for a new client that will be moving in shortly. This is the last lab we have available at the Innovation Center. We are full. Great problem to have. So as we walk down, we'll just swing by a few more. And I'm going to show you our 3 co-working spaces. We do have 3. So we're a little unusual in that sense. One of our co-working spaces is co-working laboratory, which is where we're going right now. This area is called Launch My Lab. And inside this area, we have about 1,000 square feet of shared space. All of this equipment that you see right here is shared. Any client in the building can come down and use it. We have a chemical fume hood there in the back, as well as a biological safety cabinet and CO2 chambers. We have microscopes, plate readers, centrifuges, all kinds of other cool equipment that clients can use. We even have free consumables that clients can come and take if they please. This area here, these little sections of bench separated by this bright colored tape, these are areas that clients can lease 7-foot sections of bench at a time, and it is theirs to control. And all of this for only $400 a month. Clients can come and go as they please. So like here's an example of a client that has this section of bench space leased, and that's their space. Whatever they can fit in that area, they can keep there. Another centrifuge, -80 freezer, lots of great things for our clients to use scientifically. Another great feature that we have that's very unusual, we have walk-up mass spectrometry. Those of you who are science nerds are taking a look at this going, ooh, this is called a mass spec. They're very expensive for companies to buy on their own. So we have one that clients can walk up and use, and we charge them simply by the sample. It works out really well. We've got about 6 companies that use this on a regular basis. They come down, they run their samples, and we charge them only for the samples that they run. we will swing by and look very quickly at our next co-working space, which is called the Workbench. This is an area that's used mainly for some of our engineering friends. So this is the Workbench. We have someone working here today. This is co-working space for engineering. As you can see, we have lots of countertops. Oops, I'm walking the can. Lots of countertops, lots of desk space, lots of electrical hookups, lots of space in which to build. So this is designed more for our engineering friends, so they have room to spread out and build the things that they need to build. The last space is our co-working office. And it's just like what you would see anyplace else. It's co-working office space. So this is called the ideation station. Desks, lots of whiteboards, a couple couches, places to get comfy. Clients can come here and sit and work at a desk as they need. We are open 24/7, and we do have probably about 6 client companies that are using this even now during the pandemic. And with that, I think I'll go ahead and wrap it up. We'll just walk ourselves back out to the lobby. We have lots of conference room spaces, as you can see. We've got about 4 that are about this size. Up to our upper level, where our cafeteria is, where clients have their own lunch. We don't have food on site. People bring their own. And plenty of ample parking in our parking lot. And with that, I think I better wrap it up because I think we need to keep on time, right, Carmen?
Yeah, thanks, Sandra. While you're walking back, I'm going to say a couple things about the association while I'm still keeping an eye on the chat to see if anybody has any questions, either for Sandra or that we can get to Kyle. For those of you who are not members of the association, we are a membership association, and we're striving to connect and provide resources to the innovation ecosystem here in Michigan. We're strongly networked throughout Michigan, but we're also networked throughout our region, the Great Lakes region, as well as nationally in the innovation space. As I mentioned earlier, Sandra has a rich history of being on the board of the MBIA, the International Business Innovation Association, and we're still connected there, as well as other board members have that connection. We're also a founding member of GLIN, which is the Great Lakes International Innovation Network, and we produce conferences every other year with a network between Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Canada. As well as we provide our own conference every year as well. And that conference is our annual member meeting, which is going to be coming up in late spring or early summer. Right now, we're planning on having it virtually, although any of that might change it, as the world opens back up. But I just want to make those mention to you because while we're having these virtual member meetings that are open to the whole ecosystem, we would love for new members to join and take advantage of some of those larger conferences and events that are going to be coming up this year. In fact, all 3 of those things will be coming up probably this year, and we look forward to kind of expanding the network and providing those resources to this ecosystem. So if anybody has any questions, they certainly can go to our website. I'm going to throw the URL in our chat, and you can see our membership options. But in addition to the events and the resources that we provide, we also provide networking opportunities. So you get connected to other folks in the ecosystem who have similar challenges or successes that we want to share those stories with. We want to provide people an opportunity to have resources from our affiliate members. We have quite often opportunities from our sponsors and our affiliate members that offer and pass along discounts to our members, and we can share that with you more. And then we also want to be able to share your great stories with the rest of the ecosystem. So there are ways to kind of promote the good work that you're doing in the corner of the state that you are to the rest of the network. So if you wanted to chat more at all about how to become a member, please feel free to reach out to either Sandra or myself or any other board member, and we'd be happy to talk to you about what membership options are for you. You can always go to our website and see the calendar of events that are coming up in case you want to read more about those activities, the annual member meeting, the GLIN conference, which this year will be held in Toledo, Ohio in the fall. We've hosted it here in Michigan at least 2 different years. We've been to Wisconsin 2 different years. And for our partners in Illinois, Indiana, and Ontario, Canada, they're looking to hopefully host something in the years to come. So that's what I wanted to say about the association. Many of you guys are members already. Many of you know about us, but those of you who don't know about us, welcome. Thanks for participating, and we hope you found some value on this. We're also looking to schedule our next virtual member meeting, which will take place in late summer. So please look for information regarding that event. Forgive me if I'm wrong. MTech up in the UP and Cheryl LeClaire is going to be hosting that event for us, and topic to be announced. So with that, I think that that's all I have. Are there any questions from the group? Let's see here. I don't think I have any questions in the chat. Sandra, do you have any last words before we wrap up? And I'll type our URL in the chat. No?
Yeah, no, I would just like to thank everyone for attending today. Thank you for, giving Kyle your attention. I hope you learned something about cybersecurity. I sure did. Gave me some things to think about, even for my own network at home, some ways to maybe be a little safer about the things that I do, and things that I can share with my clients. So thank you for attending, and thanks for joining me and taking a peek at the Innovation Center when we're back open live again. Anyone that would love to or like to come here and visit, we'd love to have visitors. So doors always open. Come anytime.
Absolutely. And with that, we're going to end our member meeting for today. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and everybody be safe and be well. Bye.